I was so close to finishing the project, but something was now causing a jam where there wasn't a jam before, and my attempts to rectify the situation had so far failed. The following day, with a fresh brain, I was able to create a solution to secure the gears and get it running again, and with some parts delivered, finished off the facade work for section 4. There was still one final thing I wanted to add. I'd left space at the end of the build for an animal containment unit, as featured in the game, so I found a decent reference image and got to work. Creating round things from Lego has never been easy, though the company has been introducing a lot of elements in recent years that have made it easier. I only had 4 modules of depth to work with, so I'd have to make do with half a capsule, and 3x3 curved elements seemed like a reasonable fit for this. Except the Lego group almost seems to take pleasure in providing parts which don't match in profile. Why, after all these years, have we still not got a 2x2 macaroni plate? Moving to the rocket thrusters, I went for curved arches for the parts over the top. I felt 5 modules was a little too long for this, but shortening them to 4 modules would prevent me from attaching suitable thruster elements to them. I did try out some other elements for these legs, but still had the same problem with length. At the top of the capsule is a hazard strip for which I could use stickers, but I still needed something to put the stickers on, as the panels weren't quite tall enough. The most suitable elements for this were probably curved slopes, which I found I could awkwardly connect to the roof, but then I figured as I was putting these in sideways, I may as well build the whole capsule side sideways. I was anticipating the window would be more difficult to work with due to its shape. Fitting it in sideways gave me connections perpendicular to the curved slopes and made the siding a little too wide, but placing it vertically would leave me with gaps that I couldn't really fill. I got wondering whether I could remove the physical window and instead replace it with a sticker to represent it, but scouring through thousands of stickers on Bricklink would be an extremely tedious job. I thought the Minecraft theme might offer something suitably pixelated, but the theme appears to rely on printed parts, which would mean the printed element would have to comfortably fit the capsule. I did spot one potential sticker sheet from a recent Technic set, though it was 2 1x2 stickers, but it prompted me to search through recent Technic and Speed Champions vehicles in the hope of finding something similar. Sadly, nothing stood out to me, and I didn't want viewers watching me scrolling endlessly through sets and sticker sheets for the duration of the stream, so I moved back to the capsule design. I'd earlier swapped out the 3x3 curved slopes for some taller rounded bricks, which I felt looked more appropriate, but which left a semicircle gap to fill. There doesn't really exist a plate for this, other than the full circle 4x4, which would technically fit in the space ahead, but would look a little odd from certain viewing points. For the buttons surround, I tried a couple of dishes, which were too big or not shaped quite right, and again would stick out the rear. I moved back to the sideways design, looking at how I could attach the thrusters, starting with brackets as they could hold an element flush against the capsule body, though they needed stepping out from under the side with a modified tile. I found a fun new bug from a recent studio update here, adding to the reasons I hate the update. Looking at how my design compared to the reference image, it seemed it was shaping up quite nicely, though I did reduce the width just a little, but then I got thinking about how I was going to attach the roof, and how nothing really matched that 3x3 profile, unless I narrowed the capsule further to fit on a 6x3 plate. I also hadn't fixed the window in yet, so I tested a few clips to see whether they may align with a bar connected to the side or even to the top, but nothing really seemed it would align in a compact fashion. Progress was frustratingly slow, and I hadn't even thought about the air intake on the side of the capsule. My first thought was one of the smaller corner panels, but this would leave a side open unless I combined it with a second panel, which I felt would create too wide a vent. I tested the underside of a brick, but this seemed too narrow, so I scrolled through the whole list of light grey elements searching for anything that could represent the vent, but came up with nothing. I wondered whether a stickered element could do the job, and the Speed Champions line came to mind again here, as I knew I'd seen stickers used for air intakes on cars, and sure enough I found something with potential on the Audi S1 e-tron. It was only narrow like the brick, but I felt it would be a little less jarring on the face of a slope fixed to the side of the capsule. By the end of this session, the capsule was not looking great. I started the next session by getting rid of the window and trying an opaque 2x2 tile instead. I kind of wanted to place animals inside the capsule, but the window was making work much harder. I was still struggling with fixing parts of the capsule together, so one of my regulars showed me a method they'd found online using wedge plates as a base. The design grew quite a bit wider with this method, but searching for in-game screenshots I found that the capsule really should be larger than the scale I'd been working to. I actually enlisted the help of another fellow MOC builder here, who came back to me with another potential way of connecting the capsule sides together. So I had two methods for the sides, but still nothing for the top. As the sides would be under the connection points of the rounded bricks, the bricks would be best seated on larger plates, but only a 6x3 plate matched the profile, and that was too short to cover the full width, but too long to use two together. 3x3 curved slopes would give me plenty of connection points, but the curve of the slopes wasn't sharp enough for my liking. By the beginning of the next session, things were taking shape. I briefly looked at whether I could make a recessed window using cut curved slopes, and dreamed of Lego making corner cheese slopes, and started on a method to attach the thrusters. Again, this was going to be tricky like the roof, only this time I'd have studs on the top of the plate to contend with, but then I thought I may be able to use curved tiles connected to the tops of the thrusters. Unfortunately, the 3x3 curved tile only has usable stud connections at the front and back, but the 4x4 has a connection point in the centre. Before I started fixing things together, I thought I'd better look at how the capsule would sit on the grass, as the angle of the thrusters would mean only one or two would line up with studs on a plate. With the back of the capsule aligned with the terrain, the front thrusters would be positioned over the brackets, which would be problematic. Plates under the rear thrusters could be replaced with tiles to rest them on, and admittedly the front thrusters weren't an issue if one of them was left floating above the grass, but I didn't like the look of this. Pushing the capsule back, I had tiles overhanging the terrain, so I found a way to replace them with shorter variants. I was able to connect the thrusters to the sides of the capsule with hinge plates, so now the only problem to solve was connecting the rounded bricks on the top. I didn't want the lip of a rounded 3x3 plate with a mismatched profile sticking out from the roof, but the only plate with a matching profile was too long to use one for each side, unless I rotated them to stick way out the rear. This would look fine from a head-on perspective, but a little goofy from any other, and it wouldn't fit in front of the backdrop anyway, unless I moved the capsule forward, which would again cause issues with the thrusters over the brackets. In the end, I went with a 3x3 plate with cut corner, which wasn't perfect, but it's the best Lego currently offers. The final piece of the puzzle was the surround for the large button, for which I liked a rounded corner brick but couldn't make it fit with the surrounding bricks, so instead I went for cut curved slopes placed sideways. The rest of the roof was filled in with various rounded elements, then the following session I was able to physically assemble the capsule. It was maybe a little wider than I really wanted, but overall progress put project completion firmly within sight.